Parents should look at their child's brain like a glass of water. And every time they take a hit, water spills out. If it's a little hit, it could be a drop of water. If it's a big hit, it's a lot of water. How much water do you want in your kid's glass when they turn 18, when they're 35, when they're 50? They're lucky to live to 75 or 80 or whatever to old age. You have to start looking at your brain as the organ that it is. It's the only part of the brain that can't just, heal itself like a broken bone.
Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, the official podcast of the Mac Parkman Foundation, where we look at the issue of repetitive brain trauma from two perspectives: repetitive impacts from contact sports and repetitive blast exposure for our military veterans, and what these repetitive conditions are doing to the brains, mental health, and the futures of our kids, athletes, and veterans. Why is this important? This is not trained in our nursing, psychological, parental, or suicide prevention communities. So that the correlation between contact sports, brain damage, and mental illness is unknown, making you the first line of defense in this issue. Today, another magnificent guest on our show that we're excited to have. Been following this young lady for quite a while, Miss Kimberly Archie. Ms. Kimberly Archie is the founder of the National Cheer Safety Foundation and a leading voice in youth sports safety and risk management. A tireless advocate for athlete protection, she has worked with lawmakers, researchers, and media nationwide to push for stronger safety standards and the recognition of cheer as a sport. Known for her unstoppable determination and trailblazing research, Kimberly continues to champion accountability and reform to keep young athletes and all communities safer. Ms. Archie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I've been tracking you for a little while. But not in a stalker sense either. Just, as we started to get more and more involved with, brain and sports safety after the death of our son. I came across, your book and then through the Concussion Legacy Foundation, met other moms that had worked with you in the past. So well aware of your advocacy in the area of CTE. The part of cheer is a new one for me. And so, tell the audience a bit about yourself. I mean, you've been in shows. I mean, you've done quite a lot. And so, let's, how did you get involved in all of this, unfortunately, as it is?
So my advocacy started back in 2003 when my daughter was a high school cheerleader, and she suffered a double compound fracture to her left arm, learning her back handspring for her JV high school team. And I noticed, because I happened to be there when the injury happened, and I noticed that they didn't have an emergency plan. And I started digging into youth sports and sort of the regulations, or really the lack of regulations. And I'm a brain injury survivor myself from a car wreck in 1979. I have what's called a moderate traumatic brain injury, which means I was unconscious for more than 5 minutes. And of course, even back then, they just called it a concussion. I still remember the doctor being like, "Whoa, you woke up. You're fine. You're great." And no one really addressing it, until later in life, when I kept having other symptoms pop up, and finally realized, wow, this is from the brain injury when I was 9. So when I started tracking the injuries in youth sports, obviously brain injuries were at the top of the list for me because of my own experiences, and then sex abuse as well. Those were two sort of the hot buttons, but really overall, it was just how it was like the wild, wild west. I kept thinking like, oh my God, at work, if we had the janitor on the ladder above, X amount of feet, we have all these protocols and things that we're supposed to do to mitigate the risk. And I kept reading stories about how, well, they don't have to mitigate the risk in youth sports. They have this thing called the assumption of risk. And, they only get in trouble if they increase the risk. So it was a really sort of just open field in 2003. And those, injuries that we tracked the first probably 10 years, we spent most of our time tracking injuries during that time. I started being a expert witness in sports injury cases in 2008, and I've done more than 100 cases in that time, mostly in cheerleading, gymnastics, dance, but I have done I was a football helmet regulations expert once. Not really because I wanted to, but because they couldn't find anyone else that was willing to do it because of how controversial the topic is. Um, and I also worked on the U.S. soccer case called Mayor versus U.S. Soccer. Derek Howard was the attorney that was really the person behind that lawsuit. And most people maybe don't know the name, but they know what happened from that case, which is that's the case where headers were taken out of soccer for kids 10 and under. And besides making cheerleading a Title IX sport in California, I would say, you know, turning over my 20 years of legal writing to the attorneys working on that case to generate the settlement that took headers out. I'm probably the most proud of that work than anything because of how much it's affected so many people. And because it was the first time in sports history that we were addressing repetitive hits and not just creating an age of entry to repetitive hits, but also for kids 11 to 13, we started counting. Like we count pitches in baseball. And that was something that I've tried to hammer home for 20 years that why are we counting pitches but not hits?
That is that is true. And so for the education of our audience, talk a little bit about repetitive hit impacts, especially when it comes, a lot of people don't know that cheer is a contact sport. Okay. I have, in my opinion, man, I've got buddies whose girls are flies. They're always getting hurt. They always worry because they get dropped a lot. Then a lot of people don't consider soccer a contact sport, where you've got, heading of soccer balls. And we've had documented evidence. We have soccer players at the Boston University CT Bank, where my son is at this time, where his brain is. And then, and then we've got, football, lacrosse, hockey, rugby. So you are an expert witness for this particular issue. So talk to our audience about repetitive impacts and why it should be so concerning, especially when we're talking about young and underdeveloped brains.
Well, I'll kind of hammer on 2 points. I did the Dr. Phil show some years back before it got canceled. And the topic was brain health in kids and youth sports. And one of the analogies that I gave, because, there wasn't much on the set. There's like, you're just sitting there with Dr. Phil. There's not much going on. But I noticed a glass of water sitting next to Dr. Phil. And I said, parents should look at their child's brain like a glass of water. And every time they take a hit, water spills out. If it's a little hit, it could be a drop of water. If it's a big hit, it's a lot of water. How much water do you want in your kid's glass when they turn 18, when they're 35, when they're 50, if they're lucky to live to 75 or 80 or whatever to old age? You have to start looking at your, brain as the organ that it is. It's the only part of the brain that can't just, heal itself like a broken bone. Yes, there are things that we have done over the years and continue to do to help brain injury survivors, but you don't want to purposely be injuring your brain or exposing your kids to something that's irreversible, and that can cause a lifetime of symptoms and issues and even lead to early degenerative disease like my son who had CTE. And frankly, the CTE was the least scary thing that they found in my opinion. He had a thin corpus callosum, which is your left and right, brain, your hemispheres are connected by that. And, your brain's all this energy and electricity. It's talking to each other. Like if you ever seen an EEG on a TV show, about medicine and you see, the waves that shows you how they're measuring the electricity. So if your corpus callosum's all thin because you've taken all these hits, and it's beat up. And my son was 24 years old when we looked at his brain. He wasn't 80. He had the his brain looked like an 80-year-old man's. His left ventricle was all enlarged, and scary looking. He had a thickened amygdala. It was just really a wreck of artifact brain damage, meaning old brain damage from when he played football from only 7 to 15. My son is the youngest last year to play football to be found to have CTE in the world. You
And
know,
we
have to play in high school. You don't have to play in college. You don't have to play pro to have this exposure. And that leads me to my second part. When we look at repetitive hits, you got to think about it like re- repetitive motion. Okay, so think about in the workplace, people will have back injuries from standing on their feet on concrete doing a repetitive job. Hairdressers who blow out their shoulders from doing blowouts over and over and over, or a secretary who's typing and gets carpal tunnel. If we know the typing, not not like a hit, right? Pretty soft, especially nowadays with computers. If you can get carpal tunnel from typing, why do we think we can take unlimited hits? Even when we say things like, oh, we taught tackling skills, and oh, we made the helmets better, and oh, the helmets are lighter. And now we have, a cap over them, or, we've limited, the number of days that they can practice, and all these things to try to make parents feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, how many hits does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, to the brain? You don't know how many hits it's going to take for your kid's brain to never go to a place where it can never return again. And so why are we risking that? Why are we not creating an age appropriate game for kids? Like, why aren't kids playing flag until they go through puberty? And then why aren't they playing a game that introduces them to the man's, game? Football is the only sport I know of where little 5-year-olds play on the same side's field as the guys in the Super Bowl. Come on. Like, we're so ridiculous. We drink the Kool-Aid so much. We love sports so much more than we love the people that play it, including the little kids. And I get a
Well,
lot of shit for that on the internet, for calling that out, but it's the truth. We love sports more than we love the people that play them, including children. And we need to do better as a society. We don't need to love sports less. We just need to love the people that play them more and be more sensical about how we allow kids to play. It's not going to ruin football or any other sport for that matter, because it's not just about football. It's about any of the sports that are allowing inappropriate, aspects of their game that if you expose children to it, they have a high risk of a permanent injury.
and that's where, and I agree because I testified on the ban against football in California. And it wasn't, we learned that you can't ban it. That's why, I testified on behalf of the repetitive ed impact side about why we need to delay participation, that there's nothing wrong with football when played with mature brain that understand the risk. And we have taken the contact out of the most critical parts of their life. So, and then we take it out of practice. So, hey, you play the game, I got it. If you just play game day, no problem. It's all about making it safer. But at the same time, there is this, whole concept out there that by making the game safer, where it's an existential threat to all these contact sports that they're going away. And when I talk to moms like you and parents like me and everybody else is asking for a commonsensical approach to this issue that is harming our children. I mean, we have buried our kids. And people like, you out to ban sports. I was up in Tallahassee 2 weeks ago where they gave a day to my son, and then Ray Lewis's, we work with his mom. They dedicated a day to our boys in the name of this issue. And we had to continue to explain, hey, we're not here to ban football. I mean, I'm a semi-pro rugby player. I'm a retired Green Beret Sergeant Major. I'm kind of a man, all right? But I do want these sports to be safer now that we understand the connection between, contact sports, brain damage, and mental illness. And we need to do something about it. We've been talking about this thing for, I mean, you've been involved with it since 2003. Omalo finds the disease in 2009, and nobody wants to look at children and study adults for the last, 16 years. It's crazy.
It's mind-boggling, and I tried to tell those lawmakers in California, because that's my home state, born and raised here. I was a cheerleader here. I coached here. This is my home state, and I tried to tell the lawmakers that banning anything really, the only thing I think there's been a successful sort of ban on has really been cigarettes, and everyone keeps wanting to call every new issue like the new tobacco. Well, there's only one tobacco, so let's move on and talk about the issues as is. And I told them, when you're talking about trying to make a change in society, it's kind of like that book, The Secret. The universe doesn't hear the not. Saying ban, you got to tell people what they need to do. We need an age appropriate entry to collision sports. We don't need to ban anything. We need to. It used to be like this when I did a lot of research on how Pop Warner lowered the age of entry into football, and they are the ones that did it in sports, by the way. That I don't know. I guess they're either at fault or they can say take all the glory for it. I guess it's all in how you look at it, right? But it was started by a lawyer, Pop Warner was, and initially he had a hard time recruiting people for his new league because everyone wanted to play for their high school. There was a lot of honor in playing for your, high school team. And so he needed the age of entry to be lower than what the American Academy of Pediatrics was saying was safe and good for young kids. And so he started lobbying the medical industry to change their mind. And at first they laughed at him. I mean, there's newspaper articles about it. No one has to believe me. They can go read it for themselves. Go to newspaper.com and dig into it and read about it all you want. I can tell you that it's there. And it was just a very fascinating thing to watch in newspapers because unlike the internet, newspapers are forever. You can't just change what you're saying and not be held accountable for it. And eventually they wore down the American Academy of Pediatrics and they reversed their decision that kids 12 and under should not be playing collision sports and they shouldn't be playing commercialized sports, which, is kind of at the heart of this brain injury issue is that youth sports got commercialized through Pop Warner, and then other people in organizations jumped in as well. They're certainly not alone in that arena anymore, but they were the leaders of that. They did lead the youth sports, takeover of America, and to get the age lower and lower. When my son played, you had to be 7. Now it's 5 and 35 pounds.
I know it's and number one. I mean, when I talk to people, I mean, Pop Warner has to go away or go to flag. That's it. I mean, to your point, it's not about just football. I mean, we've got kids heading soccer balls. I'm dealing with a young man right now that started playing lacrosse at 4. By 14, he was on the junior team for this country. And then for the last 7 years, has been medicated, locked up, and in rehab. And nobody has ever asked him if he's played contact sports. He's just simply crazy. No, the kid has been playing with an undeveloped brain. And of course, here in California, you can play football all year round. You got beautiful weather out there, right? Yeah. You don't just have to play a season. And we are nuts enough to think that P is for plenty. So the more we play, the better we are, because every dad and mom out there thinks their kid's going to play on the Kansas City Chiefs or something, and the odds are severely against that. So why, as a society, do we continue to roll that dice when we know the outcome is my kid's not going to play professional sports. He's not going to have a career in it. All right. And the ones that do, you're going to know them when they hit high school anyways, right? Those are the stellar guys and the girls, whatever the sport could be.
If it's about sports, I don't throw my friends around at 56 years old and do acrobatics and lead cheers anymore. My friends that played football don't play tackle football. If they play football still in their 50s, they play flag. Why are we? And that's why it's important to teach these age appropriate sports, because the flag football version is what is sustainable, meaning everyone can play it, or majority of people can play it, and you can play it throughout your lifetime, and you can continue to utilize that as a form of exercise and to
Great
stay
point.
fit and to keep, moving. As long as you're walking and doing and moving, you're living. And so, why are we having kids starting at 5 years old playing a sport that they can't play at 20, 50, 70? I always tell people, hey, what about golf? You can play golf, you know, uh, pretty much to the grave, or that's what my friends tell me. They try to
And the
convince.
golf industry wants you to know that too.
Oh man, so I just
But
think it's important for parents to look at that. And in defense of sport parents, and I do know we have, some that are overzealous, you know, sport parents are a product of the industry they're involved in. You can't commercialize it and make it all about money and not think you're going to get parents that are all about their kids being the best and playing. You're tying into their an innate feeling that parents have that they want the best for their kids, and you're exploiting it and then wondering why some of the parents are spinning out of control or out of control. They're a product of the industry. You don't want crazy sport parents, then dial back the type of sports we're playing at young ages and making winning the most important thing.
absolutely. I mean, I was just reading an article that Norway, I guess about, I don't know, 5 Olympics ago, didn't win like one single winter medal. So they literally changed their entire Olympic program. And I guess in that country, up until the age of 13, they don't even keep track of who scores what in games.
Well, that's what the American Academy of Pediatrics was telling us until the early 70s, to do exactly that. And what's changed to make that now okay for kids? If anything, it's needed more than ever with social
It is.
media and being connected to phones and all of that. Kids need free play with no pressure, where
No
they're
pressure.
thinking about what size they are, if they fit in, or they have the right hairdo or the right whatever. They should just be having fun and enjoying it. And sports should be a place to get away from all of that. That's what it was when I was a kid. I mean, we played sports every day, but it wasn't organized. We were playing kickball in a dirt lot. We were throwing the football in the Kmart parking lot.
Street hockey.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
having fun. And there were no adults around keeping score and charging X amount of dollars for the matching t-shirt. We weren't running laps because we didn't wear the right one.
I mean, everything that you're talking about right now is hilarious because we are groomed. We are groomed to think these sports are safe, that helmets are safe, that they got to drink this kind of Kool-Aid or Gatorade in order to succeed, and that it's okay to spend all this money. I mean, I deal with we finally converted the first police activity league to flag football from tackle in the nation here in Bradenton, Florida. That the committee got so much heat for doing that, but guess what? They doubled the amount of kids playing flag football because it's free, and the kids in our inner city cannot get out to where it's $250 to join a flag football team out there. There's no bus service out there. These kids don't even have cars, and so it's just but gosh, the heat that they have taken about, oh, you made this trans, what, all these macho dads, and yet they're still teaching boxing to 8-year-olds, right? I mean, we have got to grow up.
Or sparring in karate.
And you got slap clubs in California, MMA clubs for kids now. I mean, we have absolutely no appreciation for the complexity of the brain, nor are we respecting the futures that God intended for this children. The amount of human capital that we have lost in lives that have been changed forever, incarceration, mental illness, domestic abuse, crime, unemployment, suicidal ideation, all that stuff, all goes up because we have started this unbelievable, unprecedented journey where it's now okay to be a 5-year-old at 35 pounds and run into another human being with a helmet on your head that doesn't do anything to prevent any of the conditions that we're talking about.
Not only does it not do anything, it was never made for children in the first place. The standards are based really on adult standards. And the standard is still the severity index, which was like made for car crash stuff. When, in the 60s, they still haven't changed. I don't care all these studies that come out about helmets and stuff. I mean, that's cool. There are advancements. There is a better helmet now, that's not made out of stupid plastic. I mean, my kid wore a helmet that was made of the same plastic as a Lego, that had no standards on how much it could weigh, or the fact when the two helmets hit each other, that, the vibration sound that it makes, the frequencies is similar to, the frequencies we see of bombs in a war zone. So people don't know that the hits, I call it the shake and bake. They trap heat and that vibration. Our brain doesn't need repetitive exposure to a hot environment and that vibration, much less the hits themselves, right? So people don't even think about that. Have you even heard that saying? I've said it for years, the shake and bake effect. What
Yeah.
has shake and bake unintended consequences of poorly designed football helmets for kids cause on these brains? When I first started walking the halls of Congress, before my son died, by the way, I've been saying this stuff. And I'm glad I didn't swear just then because I really wanted to. I've been saying this stuff long before my son died. And I've done over 1,000 interviews. And even though they fall off as the years go on, you can find plenty of them to see that I've been saying this stuff long before he died. That's how I knew to turn his brain in, was because of the stuff
Right. Yeah. A lot
you
of parents
uh,
don't,
that we already knew. I started going to NOXI meetings. NOXI is the National Operating Committee on Standards for Athletic Equipment. They're the ones that generated this so-called, severity index. There was no standard for kids when my son died. They had never tested a youth helmet.
You
Never,
just to think about what you just
never.
said, and this applies to everything that we're talking about. The focus on sports, CTE, everything's been on adults. How can we study something on adults all these years and not even think about what are these same sports doing to a child whose brain is just starting to develop with all the complexity that God put in this thing. Not only we're going to hit the most critical part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that doesn't even start developing till 14, the last part of the brain to develop. And you wonder why we have all this mental illness. Yet we've never ever looked at the child side of this. I mean,
We don't have
there's
a reporting system either. We don't have a national reporting system.
no.
And certainly most of the statistics that are studied by the industry itself. And, I raise my eyebrows at that. Even with the Botox, my eyebrows can still raise. Sports industry, you don't want to encourage statistics. I mean, come on. It makes no sense. What is one of the most valuable things besides attention right now in society? Data. So
Mhm.
why don't we have a mandatory reporting system? When I first came out and started going around to conferences at, medical and legal conferences, we had a list of things that we wanted to see change. And the only thing on that list that's never come to pass has been a reporting system. I mean, the sports industry have come up with new fancy names of like the such and such institute, and then they're going to collect a bunch of data, and then they're going to, and they crunch it through like, legit scientists. I say that loosely, legit. I don't know. It's debatable. Some of,
They're more like bot scientists is what they are.
and then they crunch out, what they want people to hear, what they want parents to see, what they want the general public to know. And it's basically they're reverse engineering their own talking points instead of looking at data. If you took the 100 cases that I've worked on over the last almost 20 years and you put in all the data points, you can clearly see what the issues are. But the one thing that you don't have is an independent reporting system. And I, had hoped for many years that we would see like an OSHA for sports that was independent of the sports industry. But, seeing like the meeting that we saw, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, at the White House with a bunch of sports people talking about the future of college sports, there weren't any current athletes at that meeting. There were not abuse experts at that meeting. There were not risk management experts at that meeting. I think it's great that we're at least having meetings, I guess, is better than not having any. but we're not including some of the people that need to have a seat at the table. Uh, like like the two of us. I mean, we've paid the ultimate price that the industry didn't have their stuff together prior to going, pedal to the metal on selling youth sports in America. And you don't see enough of, parents getting the platform to discuss this because they claim we're too emotional about it or biased because of what happened to our kids. But that's not necessarily the case. And what's wisdom anyway? It's learning from somebody else and you not repeating that. You don't have to learn it for yourself. That's what we have to offer in this conversation, is to impart what's happened on us, is to prevent it from happening to others. That's why taking headers out of soccer is so important. How many kids are going to see less repetitive hits because of that and have healthier and better brains and need less medical care and be able to produce more in society, whether it's art, music, playing sports, or doing some kind of job like curing cancer or something? What if we're giving brain damage, brain dysfunction, early brain disease to the person who was supposed to cure cancer?
Might have already happened. I mean, to your point, are we emotional? Yeah. But we are the lucky ones, unfortunately, that found out why our sons aren't here.
Yeah.
Because we have over 90, if my coroner did not ask me about CT, he just happened to take a seminar on it. He is less than probably 5%. We don't even have a coroner education. Not only are our doctors and nurses and suicide practitioners completely uneducated on the links between contact sports brain damage and mental illness, but they are our coroners are not.
Yeah.
Think of all the young men and women that have died who have been labeled by a suicide, whose parents right now are grieving
Don't know why.
and don't know why. Their knowledge is gone. They're drugged, Satan. Right.
Your son died in a motorcycle accident. That's how he died. He died driving 78 miles an hour in a 35-mile-an-hour zone on a motorcycle with no driver's license, no insurance, no registration that I didn't know he had, driving home from work in no real hurry and almost hurt other people. If I would have never known why, I would have always thought that I didn't even know my own son.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
And it's
I'll never forget Dr. Amalu saying that. It's one thing to know, how, but it's a whole nother level to know why.
why. And I'll tell you, if I did not know why, I probably wouldn't be here right now.
Me too.
And
Me too.
and it's
I can almost 100%. I'll go 99 just to give. I hate absolutes because that backs you in a corner. And you never know what will happen in life, But I agree, knowing why, and I knew why before. I just didn't even know it was happening to my own son. I mean, I saw changes to some degree, but like most people, I'm not irrational. I blamed it on him being a young guy. Oh, he drives
22 years old.
Oh,
Yeah.
he didn't do this. Oh, he just hasn't grown up yet. Oh, he'll mature, this, that, whatever. And I would have blamed it on that. If I never had spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to reenact his death, I wouldn't have known he was going 78 miles an hour. The police and other people said it was, 45 miles an hour. That's not that much over the speed limit. He was driving almost double that. That's suicidal. To
That's
drive
impulsivity. Yep.
on a road with crossing traffic that only had stop signs, and you're driving into the sun. Literally, I went 2 days after his death and took a photo of the sun, like how it would have been in his eyes at the exact same time of his crash, only 3 days later. And every time I look at that picture to this day, no sane person would have been driving like that. That's insane. And him
Can't see.
hurting himself is one thing, but he wasn't the type of person to harm other people. The fact he could have killed the woman and her kids that he hit, I live with that every day. And I'm so grateful that Dr. Amalu did the work that he did that has led to the brain banks like Mount Sinai and Mayo Clinic and BU and others to look at this, because every parent deserves to know the truth about their kid's brain. And the more brains that we look at is only going to give us more evidence. They keep acting like all the research is so jaded because people like me who saw signs are the ones that gave the brains. Well, let's turn them all in, you guys, and look at them. Okay, hurry up and prove me wrong, because I have a feeling that you won't.
And we could take that a step further. Think about the hundreds of thousands. This is my estimate, and I'll guarantee you it's pretty darn close, if not more, of children that are suffering in mental illness right now, suffering from mental illness, suffering in silence, who are seeing psychiatrists, who are being medicated, yet continue to play contact sports because their parents, their doctors, their psychiatrists are completely unaware that
Yes.
when my son passed, I had to go see a psychiatrist. Guarantee you that's going to be one of the outcomes. I don't care who you are. And I sat there and I educated her because I was writing this book for parents. And she said, my God, Bruce, she goes, I send all my sports kids back out to play the sports because it's their identity. And I'm thinking it's so good for them. I
Yes.
had no idea that what I am doing is harming these children. She was horrified. She goes, I've got to get this word out. She goes, we are clueless at the psychiatric profession as a profession is completely clueless on this issue. And we are 100% sending these kids back out to play when they end up in front of us because of the sports that they love to play. And it's not the sports, to your point. It's all about the age of exposure, right? And the science says if the prefrontal cortex doesn't start developing till 14, just keep it away from them till high school. Take the contact out of high school and let these kids evolve and mature. Just leave them alone. We have to prioritize these children over winning, over sports. It is absolutely bizarre. And you've been fighting this battle a lot longer than me. And my hat and my heart is off to you because, I mean, it's where do we go from here? I mean, we've got legislation written. We called it the CHIPA Act. It's called the Child's Head Impact Protection Act. But basically, it's all about, the problem is that even when we find these children, everything that can heal their brain is not covered by insurance. And parents are spending thousands of dollars to fix their own children. That's another show. Yeah.
It is the issue of that, because I can speak to that personally for myself, having a brain injury since I was 9. Every single thing I've ever done, it may be covered by insurance now, but at the time that I used it, it wasn't. It'll take, sometimes 10, 20 years, sometimes never, depending on the modality. But yeah, at the time, it's not covered by insurance, and that's a real issue. The amount of money that brain injuries cost is staggering because we're more likely to have car accidents later. We're more likely to have addiction issues. I deal a lot with feeding the unhoused over the years in honor of my son because he loved, to feed the homeless, and so I continue to do that in his honor. And statistically, and from speaking to people one-on-one, over the last 10 plus years, the amount of people that are homeless that have brain injuries is staggering. Same thing with addiction, and these all overlap.
Incarceration.
The number one cause of death right now is fentanyl. Some of that is accidental overdose or poisoning. They didn't even know they were taking fentanyl. But why is addiction such a huge problem? Part of the addiction issue is repetitive hits and running around not knowing what it is. My youngest daughter survived stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
And why did she survive? One of the main reasons is because we knew about it. They had a protocol and insurance covered it. And we had a chance to fight it. I never had a chance to fight for my son. And that's the real crime against humanity, is that, people are walking around with brain trauma and don't realize where it came from and are being gaslit about their anxiety or their sleep disturbances or their headaches or migraines or seizures or, hearing voices or feeling depressed when that's not really their personality. That's the real crime against humanity. And we have to continue to educate the public, keep speaking out, keep banging our drum, keep going at it, keep doing podcasts, keep writing books, keep telling people that we meet every day, keep talking to lawmakers, and keep getting other parents that we meet to get on board and do the same and continue to raise awareness. There will be a breaking point. The dam will break. We're not there yet. We've made improvements. We've made progress, and I'm, proud of those things. We have to look back at that and be proud of it, but not for long, because we still have so much work left to do.
Kimberly, I mean, there is no doubt about that. But I do believe, to your point, the pendulum's swinging. I mean, the logic is there. I mean, when I started writing the book, there was hardly, I think, 2 or 3 pages on subconcussive trauma, repetitive impacts. It was all on concussions. It was all on TBI. It was all on, adult men, right? And now almost 100%, nobody even researches CTE, because they know if we take RHI if we take repetitive impacts out, CTE as a disease goes away. It goes away. We can literally eradicate CTE by some of the simple measures that you and I just discussed. Wait till 14, take the contact out of practice. You might get CTE stage 1, but now we have all the ways to heal the brain that our professional athletes are just finding out right now. And how many of those men and women have we lost that have gone the journey into professional sports without understanding that there are treatments out there that could help them?
Or what about our military? How many military played sports before the military? It's a lot of them.
Or became first responders. We just talked about this. Yes, I mean, it is a huge issue, but it can be addressed. And nobody's talking about banning a damn thing. It's all about, can we prioritize our children? And let me ask you a question. I mean, if you were aware, I mean, with the awareness that you have right now, would your son ever have played contact sports at the age of 7?
No,
absolutely not.
And I was divorced, and he lived with his dad. But knowing what I know now, we would have had a legal battle. I was the first mom to get a court order saying my kid's not playing tackle football. And I have moms who write to me and, ask for help doing that. And ones that have been able to get that in their divorce, that their kids can't play contact sports until after 14. Or without parents having a written agreement together, deciding together what they're going to allow them to play. It's not just carte blanche. And every one of those, emails, messages, DMs I get, I know that my son's life wasn't in vain, because, we're all only given so much time, and time is elusive as a concept anyway. And some people pack more into a small amount of time as far as their impact on society than people who live long lives. And, so I try to look at, his last name was Bright. So, we try to look at the bright side, that his brain, his life, he lit the way, and he loved football. Rudy was his favorite film, and he was that type of kid. He played nose tackle in Pop Warner his first years as the smallest kid on the team as a badge of honor. But now we know that's part of what,
it's one of the worst positions. One of the worst positions to be on. My son was a blindside kid. He was on the tackle. And it's just, and I'm the guy that put him there. He's like, Dad, what position should I play? I said, you should play on the line. He goes, why? I go, because you'll play all the time. Everybody wants to be a running back. You'll be in every game. And here I am, like a dumbass, telling my son to get in where I know, but still.
What we know now, the only thing I really questioned back then was the size of the helmet. I thought the helmets were crazy. I thought my kid looked like a Martian. I was told cheerleading and stay out of the men's business. And at the time, I did, shockingly, I did kind of retreat to my corner and go, I guess I'd never played tackle football. I played powder puff in high school. I didn't really feel qualified, back, that long ago. I didn't have the thousands of hours into this that I do now. So I was like, okay, whatever. He seems to like it. He enjoys it. Kids do love football. Football and cheerleading are special because of the size of the teams these kids play on. Those kids know real teamwork. And when I work on projects, especially big legal projects, I can tell who cheered and who played football compared to everyone
Well,
else to this day.
That goes to the point that sports and teamwork and camaraderie. I mean, I love my rugby buddies, man. They are my tightest mates, man. I mean, a lot of times I'm tighter with my rugby friends than guys I served in the military with for a long, long time, even with the war with. Okay, and that's just that bond you get on that pitch, and I love it. But at the same time, we have to recognize the impact that these sports, as much as we love them, at certain times, especially when it comes to kids, are too much. I mean, football is one of the sports that they were going to ban it in the 50s because of it. They were having discussions on this is a barbaric sport. It should be played by men. I mean, now I think that
Have
was the title of the book in
discussions for
28.
society. I mean, not necessarily we, us, but yeah, society's had this conversation. This is really the third time when the inception of the NCAA in the 50s, and then again now over the last 10 years. And the NFL has done a great job of sort of pushing this under the rug. I mean, when I said in Sports Illustrated in 2016 that flag football was the future and that the NFL should pull their heads out of their ass and focus on it, I got death threats. And now it's an Olympic sport. Will I get
Yeah.
credit for it? Probably not, but that's okay. Who cares?
But, and it's
But
still,
I'm
when
excited
you,
about it.
no, but when you put guardian caps on people's heads, you shorten the distance for kickoffs, and you start making these changes, you are admitting that there's a problem. And to the NFL's, benefit, they are admitting they have a problem. And I think as if we could get high schools, if we could get flag till 14 and high schools to practice like the NFL does not contact during the season. If every one of our high schools did that, we could eliminate 80% of the exposure that our kids have just by practicing like the pros. But are we going to get all these coaches that think they're Bill Belichick and all these dads that think that their kid's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes to make that decision? I mean, I was talking to a Pop Warner guy when they went from a 2 to a 3-point stance. All these parents blew up because it wasn't football anymore. Your kid is still running around into another kid with a developing brain. I don't care how macho you are. I don't care. You think you want to make your kid tough? Don't punch him in the head. Put him in an ice bath for 3 minutes. That's toughness. That's mental resilience that you can't get without damaging the brain with unnecessary trauma. We're talking about protecting your child. Nobody wants to prevent them from making crap loads of money when they grow up. It's kind of, we're all in berserker mode right now. But
Flag football really is the future. I said
I
years ago, and I'm going to reiterate it again. And it's the fastest growing sport. If girls want to play football, they should be playing flag. I mean, we didn't fight for Title IX to have equal opportunity brain damage. That was not what we were fighting for. So, I think flag football has been great for society and for the NFL, and well, probably not as good as Taylor Swift, but close.
Maybe, yeah. She's, that might, it's getting close there. But you're right, man. It's Olympic sport. I've seen the success here in our little local town right here. With opening up football to girls and doubling the amount of kids that aren't on the streets at night that are participating in sports that the parents can't afford. I mean, we give it away. It's for free. And that's the whole essence of sports. It's health. It's aerobic. It's just growth and teamwork and all these great things. Sports shouldn't hurt. I mean, that's just it. And
Yeah,
so,
not on purpose. It can't be. What are we willing to accept as a society as, an assumption of risk? Should kids be assuming long-term brain damage that can lead to early degenerative disease and death as a 5-year-old? I mean, that's something as a society we need to ask ourselves, and we need to actually do something about. And we know the right thing to do because we've done it before. And just like you said, it's just got to come full circle again that, we begin to understand what we already knew all those years ago. We don't need any new studies to know this.
God, we
That's how
researched this
we
to
won the
death.
U.S. soccer case. God bless all the people doing scientific research. And I'm not trying to chill that in any way. And I'm huge advocate for brain donation or organ donation in general. But we already know everything we need to know to not have kids expose themselves to repetitive hits to play a game.
I'll say it. I mean, right now we are done researching TBIs, concussions, and RHI, and I think we're done with CTE too. You want to go find a biomarker that's available in 20 years? Great. Let's approve the TES protocols. Get them in the hands of every nurse out there, so we can assess these kids. And when all these you mentioned risk, I had this Doctor Maroon on my show. He's like, well, there's risks and everything. I said, let me tell you something, buddy. Wearing a helmet and riding a bike is the risk that you might fall off that bike and get hurt. When you put a helmet on a kid, there is no risk. It's going to happen. That kid is suffering a brain injury on every damn play. That is not risk. That is apples and oranges, and risk should never be intentional. And when you take intentional risk with your child, I think some people call that child abuse. And that's the message, that's out there. Not that you're abusing your child, but when you know that something is hurting them, stop doing it. Figure out a safer way for them to exist so that you can grow old. And heck, they're going to be paying for your housing and your diapers when you're an old person, man. Why do you want to wreck the lunch ticket? Kind of a joke in hand, but I mean, gosh, the things we're doing to these children is horrible.
So one of the things that this was years ago, that's how long I've been doing it. I have little sayings and stuff that I've done, and now they're old, but they still to this day make sense. So I will tell parents, okay, let's put a sensor on your kid's helmet for football season. Let's measure all the hits. So we got 82 G's, 20 G's, 10 G's, whatever. Now I'm going to take a hammer to your cell phone and I'm going to hit it the same number of hits with the same G-force, and then I'm going to give you your phone back. Nobody has ever taken me up on that offer. They don't want to do
that. I love that. And I got one right here. It's coming to America, right? Commercially available mouthguard sensor from Australia. But to your point, every sensor.
And if you wouldn't do that to your phone, why would you do it to your kid's brain? Because you believe in some magical fairy tale that it's stronger than the iPhone? Where's your evidence? Where's your fairy study?
There is, and there has not been.
We don't need it because we know better. We know that secretaries get carpal tunnel, tennis players get tennis elbow, pitchers, same thing.
Tommy John.
We know these things already. It's not rocket science that hits are greater than motion.
No, ma'am. And to your point, it's I love that iPhone. We've been thinking about that for a while.
I stopped doing that. I don't know why. I go through phases where I try to use demonstrative evidence, things that people can wrap their head around, and they don't have to think. I'm not trying to talk over anyone's head. I want people to understand what I'm saying because it's that important.
It is. I had a doctor up there talking one of those NFL funded studies on how NFL athletes don't have mental illness and all this junk. And I pulled him aside. I said, hey, doc, I said, do you have any studies at all that indicate that repetitive ed impacts in contact sports are in any way beneficial to the brain, that they do anything positive? He's like, no. I said, so if I have 500 to 1,000 research papers saying that there is a negative impact on the brain, right? We can assume that these sports are not positive in nature to the most critical complex organ in our body. So why are kids playing these sports? He walked away. He just ran out of the room. There is no empirical evidence demonstrating a positive correlation between impacts to the brain and any positive outcome at all. And it's not making the sports bad. You can take the risk when you're older. I got it, man. I mean, I played rugby till I was 60 damn years old, but
adults do.
What's that? Sorry.
Adults can do what adults want to do. There's a difference. And for us to make decisions for our kids that, we want to take 10, 20, 30, 40% more of their brain power away before they even turn 18 because we love sports so much, or we think the benefit of playing a sport that has repetitive impacts, to me, really at this point in time, either your head's in the sand or you're lying to yourself But at the end of the day, I side with Dr. Amalo that this is child abuse. It's child abuse to continue to allow kids to be exposed to repetitive hits when we know what
We
they're.
know.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we know.
Well, Kimberly, you are amazing, man. So, I mean, tell us a little bit. I mean, as we close out, tell us all about Kimberly. What's going on right now? What's the future? How do people find you? You're an amazing source of knowledge, and you're a mom, which makes it very important. You've got a lot of cred when you speak, and so I really want people to be able to find you when they
Find
need some
me on
information.
social media. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I don't know. I probably missed something there, but those are the main ones. Under Kimberly Archie or Cheer Safety. You can call my 800 number, 800-596-7860, and talk to me anytime. If you have questions, you have ideas. I think I'm writing a book right now on. I just finished my second project, and now I'm in the process of writing the third book, which is about my 20-year history in youth sports and the different things that I've seen and done, and all of that. And we're starting a video series for our project base as a CTE. So instead of just posting the picture and their story, we're going to start having a video for each person's story so people can get to know those stories a little bit better. And the book that we put out in 2016, the audio, is coming out this fall of the book, and it's going to be free. So anybody will be
Great.
able to download our audio of our book, Brain Damage, and hear all of the stories of youth, high school, college, and pro athletes that their family. Each chapter was written by a different family member. So, like Junior Seau's chapter was written by his sister Mary.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it was each chapter's written from the family member themselves, and we have, hockey, soccer. We have a bull rider in there. I mean, it's again, there's a lot of football stories, but this is America, so we have a lot of football.
Yeah,
But we
I
have
mean,
other sports too. So that's what we have coming up in the future.
well, congratulations. And Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time. I mean, you were when I started researching CT and kids, you were all over the place. And I cannot thank you enough for your voice, for your presence, and for your commitment to our kids. So please keep the fight up. We need you and everybody else out there to understand your position on this. This has been a very forceful interview, and I cannot wait for this thing to get out there and go live.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for all the stuff you guys are doing. It's always great to see, the the product of all the hard work. So keep it up. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And we'll get you the dates for the summit. See if you want to come out here in Tampa, and we'll hope to see you then. And thank you so much, ma'am. God bless you.
Okay. You got it.
Well, folks, another amazing one. We got to write that one up, get that one on the books there, folks. Remember, what we just talked about is probably the most clear and concise rationale for not allowing your children to play contact sports. That's why we're here. Both of us have kids that are no longer around, and this is preventable. That is just the galling fact, to me, is that this is preventable. So get out there. Here's a book. Guess what? Like Kim's, it's free. Okay, it's on the website. Download the PDF. I just rewrote it. 50% bigger with all the crazy stuff we learned in the last 5 years since our son has left. The summit, September 16th and 17th here for the Center of Advanced Medical Learning and Simulation here at University of Southern Florida. Right here in Tampa. We got the Army-Navy game tailgate coming up in Tampa. We appreciate everybody that participated in Mismatched Socks for Mac Day on March 10th, his birthday. Man, we had over 1,000 people show up. It was Mismatched Socks, spreading the word that contact sports can be safe, that our kids can play them, and that they can have spectacular lives while they play them and after they play them as well. Like us, subscribe us, passes around out there. And for all of you parents that have children, remember, your child just has one melon. Please take care of it. God bless you all. We'll see you next time on Broken Brains.